So, let's talk about AI in finance. It kind of has two completely different faces. On one hand, you have these super fast algorithms that can shake up the entire stock market in like a blink of an eye. But on the other hand, you have AI that's quietly working to give millions of people a fair shot at financial services they've been locked out of for years. It's a huge contrast. And to really get it, we need to start with a story about a ticking clock and a pretty big mistake.
Okay, so picture this. It's April 2015. Some huge tech company messes up and posts its quarterly earnings report online a full hour before they were supposed to. Now, for a human analyst, this is pure chaos, right? It's a mad dash to read it, figure out what it means, and then react. But we're not talking about human speed here, not even close. For an AI, this was nothing. An algorithm using what's called natural language processing found the report, instantly figured out the key points, and blasted the summary out on Twitter. The whole thing took just 3 seconds. I mean, 3. That right there is the raw power of AI in the markets. Just pure, unbelievable speed. But that incredible speed, it really only tells one side of the story. Because while all these algorithms are fighting to save a few milliseconds on a trade, a totally different kind of AI is being trained to solve a much older and way more human problem. So what if AI's most important job in finance has nothing to do with making fast trades faster and everything to do with leveling the playing field? Okay, first let's dig into how AI even deals with the absolute chaos of the financial markets. I mean, the biggest challenge for any investor, whether it's a person or a machine, is just trying to make sense of this constant flood of information. So here's the thing. Computers are great with what we call structured data. Nice, neat spreadsheets with clean rows and columns. Easy. But the stuff that really moves the market, that's almost always unstructured data. We're talking about news articles, social media chatter, the exact words a CEO uses in an earnings call. It's all messy human language. So, how do you get a machine to understand all that messy human stuff? Well, that's where natural language processing, or NLP, comes in. Think of it as a translator. It's this amazing technology that lets algorithms not just see the words, but actually start to understand their meaning and their context. It's the key that unlocks all that valuable unstructured data. And once you have that key, you can start doing some really wild stuff. One of the most powerful uses of NLP in finance is something called sentiment analysis. It's basically an attempt to put a number on something that feels totally unquantifiable, the mood of the entire market. So here's how it works in a nutshell. First, the AI just drinks from a fire hose of information. We're talking news, tweets, legal filings, everything. Then it goes through and starts scoring words. Things like growth or record-breaking get positive points. Words like risk or decline get negative points. And finally, it just adds it all up to create a single score, a quick snapshot of whether the vibe is positive or negative. And this example shows you the real-world power of that. Back in 2013, hackers got into the Associated Press's Twitter account and sent out a fake tweet about explosions at the White House. The sentiment algorithm saw explosions and White House, registered extreme negative sentiment, and just started selling instantly. The market dropped 145 points in 2 minutes, all based on a lie the machines couldn't tell from the truth. Okay, deep breath. We're gonna pivot now. We are leaving the chaotic world of high-speed trading and we're stepping into personal finance. A world where, for millions of people, the problem isn't having too much data, it's having no data at all. These are what you could call the data deserts. I mean, think about it. The whole traditional financial system runs on your past. Your credit score is just a summary of how you've borrowed and paid back money before. But what happens if you don't have a past for them to look at? Maybe you're new to the country. Maybe you've always just used cash. What then? Well, you get stuck in this incredibly frustrating loop. You can't get a loan because you don't have a credit history. But of course, you can't build a credit history unless you can get a loan in the first place. It's this classic catch-22 that leaves millions of perfectly responsible people stuck on the outside. And this is where that second phase of AI comes into play. Researchers and fintech companies started to realize, hey, wait a minute, these people might not have traditional credit data, but they have all sorts of other digital footprints. The real challenge was just figuring out how to read them. This brings us to a really cool idea: strong versus weak signals. Strong signals are the obvious stuff. Your payment history, your income, they're directly linked to whether you can pay back a loan. But weak signals are different. They're things like your behavior in a mobile banking app, or how regularly you deposit into a social security fund. On their own, they don't mean much, but when an AI looks at them all together, it can paint a surprisingly accurate picture.
And this table just lays it out so perfectly. In one huge study, over half of the people in this underserved group had zero traditional credit history, no strong signals. But what they did have were weak signals. They had app data, they had social security data, and AI can use that data to build a bridge across this massive divide. And the results? I mean, they're not just good, they're incredible. A massive study of over 1 million people found that old-school models only approved about 17% of these applicants. But when they brought in an AI that could read those weak signals, that number jumped to 32%. The AI nearly doubled the approval rate, opening the door for tens of thousands of people.
Now, you'd think, okay, if you're approving more people, you must be taking on more risk, right? Nope. And this is the most amazing part. The AI didn't just approve more people, it actually made smarter decisions. The default rate for those newly approved loans went down. The AI was actually better at figuring out who was a good bet, proving that these people had been unfairly shut out the whole time.
So there you have it, two incredibly powerful but very different uses for AI. One that can cause market mayhem and one that can create financial fairness. But here's the catch. Underneath it all, they both share the exact same risks and blind spots.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's selling stocks or approving loans, you still run into these universal problems. You've got the black box issue, where it's almost impossible to know why the AI made a certain decision. There's the risk it learns and even amplifies biases from past data. And they're still not great with human stuff, like sarcasm or telling the difference between a real trend and just an online echo chamber. These are challenges across the board. And this quote just hits the nail on the head. We're now living and communicating in a world where these algorithms are listening in a way that most humans never intended. Every word we type, every app we use, every little digital footprint, it can all be scooped up and analyzed for meaning we never intended to put there. Which leaves us with this massive final question to think about. In a world where an AI can judge your creditworthiness based on how you use an app, or crash a market because of a single tweet, what even is material information anymore? In finance, material means it's important enough to change a decision. But now that line is getting blurrier and blurrier, and figuring out the answer is going to redefine a whole lot more than just finance.